Hello, I am Lisa Mendez, Programs Director for the Miami Book Fair, and I want to welcome you to Miami Book Fair 2020, the first online fair in our 36-year history. We are grateful to be part of Miami-Dade College, a community college serving South Florida for more than 50 years. I want to thank all of my hardworking colleagues at Miami Book Fair, including my co-director Delia Lopez, and I also want to thank our college's interim president, Dr. Rolando Montoya, vice president, Dr. Leonor Rodicio, and our director for cultural affairs, Natalia Crujeras. On behalf of the MDC Board of Trustees, the entire college family, and the staff, advisory committees, and supporters and sponsors of Miami Book Fair, we wish you the very best and hope you enjoy this program and all others we are presenting this fair.
Hello, my name's Davey Frankel, and this is In Conversation with Lenny Kravitz and Kiesha Garrison. That the Miami Book Fair has asked me to introduce this conversation about Lenny Kravitz's new memoir entitled Let Love Rule is an honor and a pleasure. Lenny Kravitz is a brilliantly talented musician who long ago assumed his rightful place in the rock god pantheon. I remember being a teenager hearing Lenny Kravitz's debut album and being enthralled by its amazing soul rock and its messages, songs of strength carrying the ideas of peace and love. In college, I remember many evenings listening to his album Mama Said, cozied up and chilling out in my girlfriend's bedroom. As an oral visual artist myself, working in a variety of mediums, I've been impressed by the expression of his talents and passions across music, film, architecture, and design. In my more recent years, as a father of two and a family of four musicians, when it came time to form the family band, the first song that came to mind, coming full circle, was of course Let Love Rule. Lenny Kravitz's debut album Let Love Rule, released when he was 25, kicked off what is now a staggering list of accolades, awards, and creative accomplishments. In his autobiography of the same name, four-time Grammy Award-winner Kravitz ponders the relationships, experiences, and circumstances that led to that debut, pulling back the curtain on his private world and sharing some of his most candid thoughts. In an interview in the New York Times, he describes this book chronicling his early years that led to his launch into superstardom as a recounting of, quote, the journey of finding my voice, end quote. Speaking with him is Kiesha Garrison, Microsoft's Director of Communications and Cultural Programs. Garrison is a thoughtful and compelling moderator whose last celebrity sit-down found her with Will Smith and Oscar-winning director Ang Lee. And now, Lenny Kravitz and Kiesha Garrison.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiesha Garrison, Director of Communications and Culture at Microsoft and host of the blog Another Black Girl. A good day for me is one where I can connect other people to the inspiration and experiences that they need to thrive, or where I can encourage people to live with a lot more authenticity. Today, I'm honored to get to do all of that by sharing a conversation with a person who stands as an incredible example of the magic that's possible when someone is honoring their true voice. Before he was a global icon, a Grammy-winning musician, songwriter, designer, philanthropist, photographer, the list goes on. But of course, he's also now a New York Times best-selling author. He was simply a young man in search of his authentic voice. We are joined today by Lenny Kravitz, who is here to discuss his memoir, Let Love Rule, got it right here, which chronicles the first 25 years of his life, culminating in the release of his debut album. Lenny, thank you for being here with us today. Welcome.
It's a pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you today?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to have you here today to talk about the book. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about what it was like for you to become an author for writing your memoir. We all know you are an experienced songwriter. You've been telling stories and painting pictures with words for almost your whole life at this point. Was there anything that you went through as a songwriter that helped you as you were writing this book?
I tend to see everything as rhythm and melody and accents, color, whether you're writing a song, whether you're taking a photograph, whether you're acting, whether you're writing a book. To me, it's all about rhythm. And so without thinking about it, I'm able to apply that. I know when it feels right. I know when the voice is right, for me at least. And, as far as me writing this book, I just had to make the decision that I was going to go through with this. This proposition came up. I wasn't sure about it. I thought about it. I took it as a challenge. And then as I got into it, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing at first, and didn't know if I wanted to go through it, actually.
Really?
But I took my time. I stopped for a while. I was on tour. And one day I just woke up with the first chapter, and it came out just as a song would come out. And I knew that was the beginning, and I knew that I'd finally found my rhythm, my voice. And then it was just a matter of, keeping on with it.
Yeah. She said you had to be convinced. Can you share
Yeah, I did. I didn't quite understand why I was doing it. I wasn't quite convinced with my story, with my, it's my life, just as your life is your life. And I think sometimes we tend to look at other people's lives and think that it has more color, more expression. I don't know, because my life's my life, I'm always trying to grow and move forward, and I don't think about it a lot. But in diving into this, I found that yes, I had something there.
That your life was in fact a kaleidoscope of wonders.
Oh, I like that.
That's how I see it. So I love hearing that the first chapter came to you similarly to the way a song comes to you, because the book itself is about you finding your voice as a musician. And so it's interesting to me that you had to find your voice as an author in the process of telling that defining voice.
I think I'm always in search of my voice at whatever time in my life. Where I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly trying to go, not trying to, but just innately, I just want to go other places. I want to experience different things. If I've done something, I won't repeat it. I can't do it. There are times in my career where, you have big hits and record companies say, do that again, do that. I'm not able to. Once I've gone somewhere, I've done it. Yeah. And I have to move forward. So, I'm trying to find my voice today. I'm being creative at this time, and I'm in the studio making new music and doing different projects in different mediums, whether it be design or photography or whatever. And I'm always in search of a new part of my voice.
Are you pretty much doing something creative every day now during this quarantine time?
Yes. Yeah. I even if some days it's about sitting still, that's creative as well. Prince and I used to have a conversation about words. And he was saying to me, because we were talking about taking a break, and he said, look at the word recreation. The word actually is recreation.
Oh, wow.
So when you take that time to rest, to take a break, now, I'm not sure how many breaks and rests he took, but we were talking about it. But it was all about, that time is recreation, even when you're not doing so-called something. So on those days where it's quiet and you just need to sit and think and look and feel and listen, that's creation as well.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to look at it, because every day you get another layer of information and new experiences, and it adds on.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. So you teamed up with a, pretty legendary author, David Ritz, a legendary writer, for this book. After he convinced you to take this on, how did the two of you begin a journey together in telling your story?
Well, we met at a dinner through a mutual friend in New York, and I knew who he was, of course, and read his books, and found him to be extremely interesting. And he said, you should write a book and I'd like to help you. And I just thought, that's nice. That's that's what he does. And, he thinks I should do it. Fine. But I didn't want to do it. And by the end of the dinner, he had convinced me to do so. And, David Ritz is, we became like brothers through this process. We both have a lot of similarities, as different as we are. We couldn't be more different, but at the same time, we're very much the same. He's extremely intelligent and soulful and a real individual. So he made it easy for me. And even in the times where I was probably wearing him out by taking these long breaks and trying to find my voice, and scrutinizing every word on the page, he was so gracious about it. He was very open to whatever the experience would be, even if it was different than any other experience he might have had.
He's a fellow Brooklynite too, I saw.
Mr. Ritz.
Yes. Given this is your personal story and the story of so many people that you love, your friends, your family. I imagine you have to trust somebody a lot in collaborating to write a memoir. How did you get to the place where you were ready to open up the doors to him?
Well, I was comfortable speaking with him. It started out like therapy, just talking, and going through life and recording everything.
Yeah.
And then, and I found that I was very comfortable with that. And he made it easy. And then it came down to, as I said, me finding how I was going to then write this. And that's what took the most time. But it was, I realized as I got into it that this was going to be beneficial for me just in my life. Forget the book coming out or if it did well or anybody liked it or it sold, that I knew that this was going to be something that would be revealing to me, and something that would enable me to take a better look at my soul. And so once I saw that and I was enjoying the process, it came pretty naturally. It was just about when it was going to happen and how we were going to work. David traveled with me on tour for some time. He came to Paris with me for some time to my house. He came to Brazil and hung out with me while I was rehearsing for my South American tour. And so, we spent a lot of time together as well. And then we spent a lot of time apart, where I would just write, wherever I was.
The result is beautiful. I loved reading about your childhood and learning so much about you through the stories that you told. You mentioned being very, all the ways that you explore a moment ago. You had this beautiful childhood living in Bed-Stuy and in Manhattan, exploring a lot of different worlds. I think you said, I leaned in and explored all the extreme interests and thoughts inside of me. Like young Lenny sounds a lot like you today. I'm curious, what did that exploring look like for you when you were that young boy?
I had these different worlds in front of me that I found fascinating. I grew up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I grew up on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which were polar opposites. And I had two different names. In each place, I was Lenny in Manhattan, and I was Eddie in Brooklyn. Two different lives, two different feelings, two different neighborhoods, different people, different culture, different attitude, different language even. So having these two worlds enabled me to not always be the same. And I was very attracted to that, to being able to express the different sides of me. You know, I talk about my Gemini soul, and I truly have that. And my life offered me the opportunity to express that.
Yeah, looking at the journey of your life, there's so many pieces. There's Lenny Kravitz, the skater boy. There was, you know, the young man playing guitar in a marching band. There's so many different layers to who you are. And I think about the people who might know you, who might come to know you because they love rock and roll, and they might then learn about funk and soul. And you're an amplifier of all these different cultures and things, because you flow through so much. Like, how do you flow through so many different parts of life and interests and still maintain your core sense of self?
I'm just open. I'm open to so many things, and I want to experience so many things. You know, growing up, I wanted to experience not just one instrument, but many instruments, and not just one style of music. I loved music as a kid, as I still do. And I wasn't limited. You know, a lot of kids grew up, you know, I listened to rock, or I listened to soul, or, you know, whatever it might be. And I wanted to hear it all, you know, classical, everything, you know, and that fed me. I had a lot of desire to understand different things, and to incorporate them together, you know. They're all colors in the crayon box, you know. I didn't want to just have one crayon, you know.
Yeah. You mentioned Miles Davis in the book and his influence, and showing these fusion jams and the inspiration it gave you to explore every genre that you liked. What was it for you, you know, discovering Miles's music? I
mean, Miles was just an amazing human being and character, and I found him to be very mysterious. But somehow for me as a kid, you know, because we were all close with my godmother, Cicely, obviously, who was married to Miles, Cicely Tyson, Miss Cicely Tyson. And, you know, Miles liked my mother very much. They got along, you know, so Miles was cool with me. You know, I was a kid, but he, you know, he would talk to me. You know, he wouldn't treat me like I wasn't in the room. And I just watched him, you know, and we'd go to concerts, and he was magical. He was, you know, like an alien from another planet. And he didn't care. He, you know, he was going to express himself and be himself unapologetically. And I learned a lot from that. And he incorporated so many different styles of music. I mean, he changed his style and the course of music, you know, several times. You know, just because he went a certain way, the world followed, you know.
Wow, I love to hear you talk about him, and I'm thinking about you. I feel like so many of the things that you just said to describe Miles Davis, very similarly applied to the way that you lived your life and the way that you worked your music. So that was just really cool to hear you talk about one of your influences.
Yeah, and we were both Geminis, and we both have the same birthday.
What?
Yeah, we both are born on May 26th. And
that's cool.
There were occasions where, you know, on my birthday, our birthday, I had to go to his party, which, you know, I'm so glad I did now. You know, when you're a kid, you're like, okay, you know, but
you don't want to be sharing birthdays.
I'm so glad I had done that and have those memories.
Oh, that's awesome. You shared a lot of memories in the book. I want to ask you about some of the interesting firsts that you shared with us in honor of it being your first memoir and talking about your first album, I want to ask you about some of the other firsts that you shared with us in the story.
Okay.
The first song that you learned was a song that your mother taught you.
Oh yeah.
When I read it,
Have you heard the audiobook?
I have not yet.
Oh yeah, well, I sing it in the book. There's a few times where I sing in the audiobook, so to illustrate what's going on. Anyway, you can hear that song in the audiobook. Yeah.
So you just.
But yes, my mother taught me a song. Yes, that she, we're in New York City. I'm a little kid. There might come a time where we become separated in a store or on the street.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid, right? And so she taught me this song that was, this is my name, this is where I live, this is where my grandmother lives, these are the addresses, blah, blah, blah. And I learned that song, and, it had a melody, it had, words, chords, and I'll never forget it. It was, and that was the first song I learned that my mother taught me, that she wrote. Yeah.
I'm totally getting the audiobook. I need to hear this. And I think it's so creative that she taught you who you are, how it helped you to stay safe, use music to do it, and to see that music became such a big part of your life. It's just interesting to see that very, very, very early music was using your life. So that was cool. But I'm totally going to get that audiobook. I need to hear that song. Another first for you. Your first time seeing the Bahamas. I mean, you're there, you've been there for months now. I want to take you all the way back to that first time that you landed there. And what were your impressions?
It seemed like another planet to me. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. And it had a different smell. The air was different. The feeling was different. Time itself was different. And this is where my cousins lived, where my grandfather was from. And my mother was, wanting me to know my family and know my culture and experience it. And I loved it. It was heavenly, as it still is for me. And I got so much joy out of coming to the Bahamas as a kid. It just was a place where you could be free. And that was a wonderful feeling to have as a kid. I was free in New York. I ran the streets. I took the subway and the bus and and cabs and all as a kid. But that's a different thing. This was a freedom in nature, and it helped form me very much, having that time down here as a kid with my family.
Beautiful. What about your first time going to when you moved to California? Your first, it seemed like that California had an impression on you. It's very different from your life in New York.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand it for a while. It took me a minute, because when you come out of your apartment in New York City, the entire world is there. You come out and the world is going, and people are everywhere. And the morning after we'd gotten there, I woke up and I looked out the window and there was no people. I didn't see anybody on the street. Nobody walking the street. Cars going by, slowly. This was Santa Monica, California in 1975. It was super mellow, and I just had no idea. I was like, where's everybody? It was like that Twilight Zone episode where everybody's gone, and then, the public transport, there was no subway. The public transportation wasn't the same. There wasn't taxis. And I mean, there were, but not like in New York where they're just,
right.
On every block. And so, and you had to depend. So therefore you had to depend on your parents or adults to take you places, because everything is so spread out. So that took me a while, but once I got into it and I discovered the skateboard, and that whole skateboard surf culture, because, you know, due to the kids that I went to school with, then I started to find my way, and then I ended up really loving it. Then I found my sense of freedom.
Yeah. And then you escalated it and started, you know, experimenting with driving cars and taking the car out.
Yeah.
Served you well.
Illegally, but nonetheless taking the car out. Yes. In the middle of the night. That's how I learned to drive, you know, stealing my parents' car.
That explorer spirit is not going to be held down.
You know, there was a whole other life going on in the night in LA, and I wanted to find out what it was, and so that was the way I did it. And I can say that I never got caught.
That's amazing to me.
Well, not caught with the car. I got caught with doing other things, but I didn't get caught taking the car.
I love it. All right. You also shared about your first trip to Africa, and that's a whole nother set of sights and sounds and smells. What was your experience when your first trip that you went to Nigeria?
Went to Lagos. Yeah, I had a summer job. My mother's friend was partnering with a Nigerian businessman putting on concerts in Lagos at the National Arts Theater, bringing over American R&B groups like Shalimar and Al Hudson featuring One Way and all these kind of groups. And so my mother got me this job. Her friend offered to take me, and I was the assistant to the stage manager. So I was basically a gopher, running around doing whatever I had to do, taking care of the band, you know, giving them their drinks and their stuff and their towels and, you know, whatever. And I remember leaving LA, we flew to New York, stopped in New York for a couple of days, hung out, which was great. And then we flew to Monrovia, and then from Monrovia to Nigeria. And this was a completely different world. There were shades of Nassau, Bahamas, shades, but it was completely different. And but I loved it. It was just wild to me, and I loved the people and I loved the music. I discovered Fela Kuti, and you know, it was and it was just amazing again to be in a place where, you know, there were Black people everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just felt it was so comforting just to experience that and to see that working. And although there were other problems, as there are problems everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But I loved it, and it was a great experience getting to, you know, put on these shows and then being in this place, you know, and having this experience that I'd never had before.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's another first that you shared that I was still working my mind around how to process it. This was, when to paint the picture, this was when you were going to your father, who you share in the book you have a complicated relationship with over this time, to try to get him to support your band Wave that you were in at the time. And your father, you said this was the first time your dad expressed support of you, but he was in support of you, but not the band. And so that was an interesting time. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about how that felt for you, for your father, who you had such a tough time with. He was pushing you to go solo, which ultimately served you very well, I think, but because your solo career has been beautiful. But what was it like in that moment where he was telling you no to the band that you were investing so much time and love into?
It had two sides to it, as you said. You know, we just rehearsed and put on this show, and we thought we had impressed everybody. And, you know, I wanted to do this with my brothers. You know, this was this is my band. These were my people. And he came over to the house where I was staying at Tracy's house, and he said, I'll back you, I'll help you, but you have to do it on your own. I'm not going to back the band. And I was on one hand offended, but on the other hand, he was telling me that I was good enough. So it was a strange feeling, and I didn't want to leave the band, but I did, and I then went on to make demos under the name Romeo Blue, which I had turned into by that time after leaving Wave, and started to explore.
I think that was just really cool to see that moment of validation of you are great. Love what you're doing.
I don't know if great was it, but I was maybe worth taking a chance.
You were worth the fatherly support.
Because basically, they had some money put away for me to go to college, and there was no way that I wasn't going to college in my mother's eyes, but I didn't want to go. I mean, getting through high school was enough for me. I'd known what I wanted to do since I was 5 years old, so I was this is it. And I'd already been out of the house for a few years now, and I was on my journey. And so I talked my parents into giving me part of what they had saved from my college tuition to go into the studio at A&M Records and make demos. And I did that with some of that money. Yeah.
It's so lovely to see all these moments, all these coming of age moments in your life. Another one that I really enjoy is realizing that some of your first live music gigs were part of the California Boys Choir.
Mm-hmm.
And those experiences, what do you remember about your first times being on stage in that choir?
It was something out of this world. My first concert was at the Hollywood Bowl, opening night of the season. It was the Mahler Third Symphony with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and was conducted by Erich Leinsdorf, great conductor, and it was outrageous. I mean, full on drama of Gustav Mahler. I mean, it's a heavy piece, and it was otherworldly. I loved it. And I had just been through the whole training process, because before you get into the concert choir, you had to be accepted. You had to audition and be tested. Then you were accepted into the training choir, and then you were trained for months and months, and then you had to pass another test in order to get into the concert choir. So, and then you go away for the entire summer, leave your parents, and you live out at this campus, and you train like hardcore, all day training, and learning different languages. We had to sing in 15 different languages. You had to learn how to sight read. You had to learn staging. You had to learn voice technique. You had repertoire, blah 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 blah, and it was at the highest level of discipline. So then I graduate, and I'm in the choir now, and our first show is that, and we're in front of this huge audience, and it was amazing.
As you've gone through this process now of looking back at all of these stories in your life and putting them all together, you mentioned writing a memoir felt like therapy. And what has been, I think, learning about yourself that you've gotten out of putting all of these stories together in this one place?
What did I learn? My God, I mean, so much. I I mean, I've been so blessed in my life to have these experiences, and I'm so grateful to God for everything that I've been given, the gifts and the opportunities to be an artist and to have vehicles where I can express myself. And, you know, in the book, I was able to take the time to look at everything and really appreciate it. Again, I think that, you know, during the time that I lived all of this, it was all happening so quickly, and I was in it that I wasn't necessarily taking the time to really look at everything. I was just, you know, you're going.
Yeah.
So I got to relive my journey, this part of my journey again, and really got to appreciate it in a different way, because now I have perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and I also got a lot of healing out of writing the book, especially when it comes to the relationship with my father, which was challenging and difficult, and at times, and so I'm very grateful for that as well.
Yeah. If anyone listening to this is seriously considering writing a memoir, what would you encourage them? What would you say to those people?
I mean, if you feel it, do it. That's what I did. You have to feel it. You have to feel it. You have to be doing it for a reason.
Yeah.
And you know, expression is a wonderful thing.
Okay. All right. And before I let you go, I feel like I have you on the line here, and you've been such a champion of people loving each other. Every album you've ever put out, you're pushing, you know, that sentiment of how we all are one, and we have to let love rule. We're going through a lot right now in the world, and I want to tap into your wisdom, your soul's wisdom. Is there anything, advice you could offer to people who are finding it hard to do that right now?
It is an extremely trying time, as we have trying times throughout history.
Yeah.
Life is trying. But we are here right now because we were chosen to be here. We are not here by accident. And those of us that know about love need to continue representing love stronger than ever. We have to walk out our examples, not just talk about them. We have to walk it. And you know, it amazes me, because human beings are so intelligent. We have the capacity to be so much, and we still haven't figured out how to live on this planet together, despite our differences.
Yeah.
You know, why we can't accept other people's lives and let them live their lives as they wish to, and we live our lives as we wish to, and meet in the middle and share this planet and work together to keep this place that we were given as a gift intact. So here we are at a very heavy crossroads where we don't know how to deal with each other. We're destroying ourselves and each other. And we're destroying the planet. And we have to decide if we want to live or not. If we want to repair. If we have the time at this point to repair, you know? But yeah, we need to make those decisions, and, you know, unfortunately, governments and folks running corporations, you know, they're looking at the dollars, they're looking at the power, they're looking at the ego, control, and they make it hard. They make it hard. But, you know, we have to, as I said, represent in our tiny little worlds, you know. Mm-hmm. It all starts from within, you know. And as my mother always said when I was a kid, charity begins at home. You got to start right where you are, you know.
Yeah.
If you can't get on in your household with your people, how are you going to get on in the world, you know?
Indeed. Yeah. Oh, that's, I'm going to carry that with me. The fact that we are each here on purpose for a reason right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this experience of life is wonderful with all its challenges. I was thinking that this morning, actually, on my bike ride, that, you know, people tend to thank God for lots of things, you know, when they get something or an opportunity in life or,
yes,
you know, something wonderful. And I was thinking, but just the opportunity to live is already so much to be thankful for. With all of the challenges, the opportunity to have this life is a lot already.
That's beautiful. And with that, I think we'll stay on that note of gratitude. Thank you for.
It's always good to talk to you and see you.
So good to see you again too. Thank you for sharing your story, Lenny.
It's a pleasure. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.